In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Glory to Jesus Christ. When we read today's Gospel, what first hits us usually is its seeming negativity. Why is it that Jesus tells us we must hate mothers and fathers and wives and husbands and children? Who can do this? But if we look into the grammatical construction and where this kind of thing appears in other scriptural places, then we will see that hate does not mean hate at all. It means to love less than. So then we are asked by Christ to love God above all, but not to hate anything. Still, it seems a little harsh, like we are being forced to love God more than anything, whether we like it or not. What kind of love is that? Can love be forced on us? I don't think it would be love at all if it were not freely and voluntarily given and embraced. Another thing, would God cease to love us if we did not give in to His demand to love Him best? I think the answers are clear. God, being love, does not ever become not love. We may not be friends of God, but He is always a friend to us. So I began to search for a different approach, and I ran into the 14th century anonymous mystic known as Julian of Norwich. Among all the interesting things we know about her life, here is one that might interest you. Julian of Norwich was the very first woman to write a book in the English language. It's a small book, but it's a good book. And the name of that book is Revelations of Divine Love. And it really lives up to its name. In the midst of the difficulties of life in the 14th century, including the Black Plague that is believed to have killed her husband and perhaps a child or two, and in the midst of her own personal suffering from illness, she was granted visions. And all of them led her to develop a theology quite unlike anything she had been taught in the church, namely that God is not angry, nor is He vengeful. In these visions, she saw and experienced the radical intensity of God's love. She saw the Lord suffering and knew it was for her and for all things. And all her visions circled around these points. God is one in Trinity. Everything is in God and God is in everything. And finally, God transcends and encloses all that He has made. Although she may not have known much about the Christian East, she came to its same mystical conclusions through mystical experience of the Lord firsthand, much like St. Paul. In God's fullness we all share. Not only us, but all human beings, all creatures great and small, even the very minerals of the earth, the wind, the rain, the sun, the seas, the mountains, everything. And even in this terrible suffering we see around us is His fullness. For He looks with great compassion even on the sparrow that falls from its nest, and He embraces it. Nothing and no one dies or suffers, and nothing happens apart from God's limitless and inexhaustible love. The point I wish to make is this. If we knew God, really knew Him, we would love more than anything the Lord, and love everything less than Him. And the love that overflows from Him would then overflow from us to everything great and small. If we come to know Him, we become like Him. We do not cease to love, we become love. We no longer look at God from a distance, not in fear, but in wonder. I too was taught the things that Julian of Norwich was taught when she grew up. I heard fire and brimstone nearly every Sunday, and the blaring trumpets of the great and last day, which was fast approaching, Maybe tomorrow, when the sun turns red and the blood shall flow and the locusts come from heaven and, all of that stuff. I heard it all. I was taught that on that day, the great judgment day, every knee would bow out of fear of judgment. I no longer believe it. I believe that what will be revealed on that great and last day, whatever that means, will be an overwhelming and even frightening revelation of divine love. And we will bow not out of fear, but from the kind of fear that comes from wonder. And then we will hear the voice of God echo in our hearts and minds as it did for Julian of Norwich, quote, "All things shall be well," end quote. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.